Recently, we did a video covering every single thing that we knew about the Pixel 6, from the front camera module changes, to the front design, to the existence of a Pixel 5a, to even Google launching their own in-house silicon with the Pixel 6. And now Jon Prosser has revealed the alleged design of the Pixel 6, and there's a ton to talk about, so here's everything you need to know alongside my own thoughts on it. So, here you go. This is how the Pixel 6 looks like, according to Jon Prosser, who has made these renders based on actual photos that he was sent. The first thing that you can see here is that the front gets not one, but 4 major changes. The first one is the camera module, which is now in the center as opposed to the left like we had before. This also matches the findings from 9to5 Google that I've talked about in our previous Pixel 6 video. The second change is in terms of the bezels, which are much smaller now. The top and the bottom bezels do seem slightly thicker than the sides, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we would get front-facing speakers or anything crazy like that, as even with this thickness, there just isn't enough room for them. Then third, the frame seems to be made out of stainless steel or at least some sort of polished metal as opposed to the matte frame that we've had on previous Pixel phones for a while now. And then finally, the fourth change is the fact that we finally have an in-display fingerprint reader as opposed to the back-mounted one that Pixel phones have had in the past. And from these renders, it seems like the glass is also flat as opposed to it being curved like on some of the other flagship smartphones out there. I gotta say, from the front, the Pixel 6 is already a major improvement over the 5. But when we take a look at the back, this is where it gets even better. And here you go. Okay, first impressions of the back, I think it looks super unique and I'm a big fan of it. It kind of reminds me of the Nexus 6P, if you guys remember that, just with a modern twist to it. We have this dual tone or even triple tone look, if we count the camera in, with a gigantic camera bump, but one that just merges perfectly with the new design. Just by looking at this, I think it is one of the best designed phones that I've ever seen. I absolutely love it. Now, something else that you should know about the Pixel line, the Pixel 6, is that there isn't just one Pixel 6, but 2. So according to Jon, the XL has been renamed into Pro, which I do think is a way better name, and as always, there are a few key differences between the two models. The most obvious one is the size, with the Pixel 6 Pro being noticeably larger than the regular 6. By the way, we don't yet know anything in terms of the actual display sizes, but I do not see the Pixel 6 Pro going any larger than 6.8 inches, which would match the size of the Galaxy S21 Ultra. Which makes me think that a Pixel 6 would be around 6.1 inches or so. Now, these are just my guesses, by the way, so we'll see if I'm right in just a few months. Now, another difference between the 6 and the 6 Pro is when it comes to the camera modules. The 6 has 2, whereas the 6 Pro has 3. It is pretty safe to assume that the 6 will have a regular and an ultra-wide module, while the 6 Pro will have a regular, an ultra-wide, and a telephoto. And judging by how thick the camera bump is, there is a good chance that Google will be using a larger, actually a very large, sensor for the main module. Now, fun fact, this has been reported before by 9to5 Mac that Google will finally be using a new main module for the first time since the Pixel 2 from 2017. This is some pretty major news, as all that Google has done in the past was to just upgrade the image processing and nothing really in terms of the main camera's hardware. Another reason for that gigantic camera bump could be the presence of a periscope module, similar to what we've seen with Samsung and Huawei phones. Although I do not really see this happen, only because it would drive up the price of the phone considerably, and no matter how good the Pixel 6 is, Google will still need to have a competitive price point. Which leaves us to the very last difference between the 6 and the 6 Pro, which is the color. It looks like the regular 6 would have this white back, whereas the 6 Pro would have this pastel orange look, which I'm not really a fan of myself. Like, I much prefer the white back. Jon also shared images of a champagne color, which looks super premium, and I can definitely see myself using that too. I honestly think that if these renders are indeed correct, then Google has nailed it when it comes to the design. Pixel phones have always had this problem of looking very outdated from the front, being a few generations behind, while the back was actually always superb, at least after the Panda Pixel 2 launched. And now we not only have the best looking back, but also the best looking front. Aside from the design and the back camera improvements, the Pixel 6 is also expected to come with a bunch of extra features. For example, the front camera is now expected to finally get 4K video recording, something that was previously limited to just 1080p. But the biggest change by far is the rumored inclusion of Google's own GS101 chip inside both the Pixel 6 and the 6 Pro. This is said to be the very first major chip designed in-house by Google. And I just cannot stress enough how big of a change this would be. First, by Google developing their own in-house silicon, they can truly optimize their software, so Android, to their own silicon, which means that future Google phones would run faster, cooler, and be more efficient than the competition running on Qualcomm chips. Second, if Google does indeed transition to their own silicon, they would likely do the same with the Chromebooks, making Google the only other company aside from Apple being in full control of their hardware and software, which at the end of the day is really bad for their competitors, but very good for the consumers. This begs the question, what will happen with Android then? Like, if Google will be in charge of developing Android and then also in charge of developing their own silicon, then you would expect them to intentionally make Android run better and faster on their own chips and devices, which in turn would heavily impact any other non-Google phones on the market. Unless, of course, Google starts selling their own Google chips to other Android manufacturers, which means that Qualcomm would pretty much be done for. I'm definitely curious to see what will happen. But regardless, we'll have day one coverage of the Pixel phones, so definitely make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss that out. We're actually trying to reach a 50-50 subscriber/non-subscriber split, and we're more than halfway there. So if you subscribe, it will help us reach that goal faster. In the end, I do think that the Pixel 6 has a lot of promise. If they have the Pixel 5a as the low-end option, then the Pixel 6 as the mid-range, and then the Pixel 6 Pro as the true flagship, then Google would finally tick all the boxes. Which is something that they've never been able to do before, as all the past Pixel phones were either underwhelming flagships or good low-ends. Like, they never had something to satisfy the mid-range, and definitely not something to satisfy the highest-end consumers. Now, there is one more leaked Google device that I want to talk about, and that is the Pixel Watch. Jon Prosser revealed this back in April. We didn't really make a video on that back then, so here are my quick thoughts on it. Design-wise, and I'm not even exaggerating, this is the best looking smartwatch that I've seen. I do prefer the idea of a circular smartwatch myself, and this just looks outstanding. I also love the bands that Google has made for these. They do resemble the Apple Watch bands in some way, and they even seem to have a mounting mechanism similar to that of the Apple Watch, which I do like as it is super easy to replace the bands. Google also seems to have designed some custom watch faces just for the Pixel Watch, as opposed to, just using generic ones that Wear OS has. And here's the thing, Wear OS is the best alternative to the Apple Watch, or watchOS, that there is. The only problem is that a lot of these smartwatches use very outdated processors. Qualcomm's next-gen wearable chip, the 4100, is only used in a single smartwatch today, which is the TicWatch Pro 3. And whilst it does make a massive difference performance-wise, we do not have any other alternatives yet. Which means that whatever chip Google releases for their own smartwatch, it is very likely going to be powerful enough to run Wear OS without any performance issues, making the Google Pixel Watch likely the best Android smartwatch on the market. And that is what I'm super excited for, because, I still have this wrist empty. But let me know in the comments what do you guys think about both the Pixel 6 and Pixel 6 Pro, and also the Pixel Watch. Which one are you excited for the most? I'm pretty excited for all of them, especially the Pixel 6 Pro and the Pixel Watch. Like, I'm finally super excited for a Pixel lineup. I think the last time I was this excited was, I think it was the Pixel 4, because that was supposed to come with some massive new features, which it kind of did, but they were underwhelming in the end. But yeah, I do think that if this is all true, if all of these leaks are true, then Google's definitely gonna compete with everyone. And I'm just super curious to see how all of that goes. But yeah, if you have enjoyed this video, definitely give it a like, as it does help the algorithm find and push our videos more. And definitely subscribe if you want to see more interesting tech videos like this one hopefully was. I'm Daniel, this has been Zen of Tech, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Zen of Tech, signing out. Cheers.